All right, welcome everybody to the Trust Business Podcast. I have a very, very special guest today. It's John Chan, owner of the Durable Slate Company. John, thanks for coming on, man.
Sure, it's great to be here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so you guys do something very unique. You guys are like, for me as a roofing company owner, I look at you guys and what I see on your website and everything. You guys are artists, man. Slate, copper, tiles, very fancy, high-end historical work. So we're going to talk about kind of art in the roofing industry and kind of historic roofing. So I guess just to start off, tell me just a little bit, just for the audience, about the Durable Slate Company, what you guys do, and then who you are within it.
Sure. Okay, so the Durable Slate Company started in 1986. I started working there actually in 86 as a part-time person in the summers when I was going to UCLA. I'd come back to Columbus and that was my summer job. And so at first all we did was slate roofing repairs, and after a while we kind of graduated into doing new slate roofs and then tile roofing, clay tile, copper. And we've worked in, I think it's around 40 states now.
Wow.
And we've worked a little bit abroad. We've done work in Lima, Peru. We did the Red House, which is the House of Parliament in Trinidad. We've done a bunch of embassies in Washington, D.C. and various government buildings. So we do a lot of really, really cool projects.
Wow. Yeah, it's unbelievable, man. Talk to me about the process you must have in place just in order to do projects like that. And what I mean is that's very high end. The expectations are obviously going to be high in terms of what is the final product. And I know I'm familiar with your guys' core values and stuff on that. But talk to me about just your guys' process and your mindset to be able to come in and do like an embassy with, obviously, I'm sure such a high expectation. Like, what is that like?
Sure. So basically, a lot of people call us because they need something done in a very specific way or a certain amount of time. Like, you just said embassy, like the Norwegian embassy, for instance. They had to have it done in a certain amount of time and the copper had to look exact. So when I say a certain amount of time is that there's a penalty clause. Basically, for every day you run over, it's $5,000.
I've done jobs like this.
Yeah. You go 10 days over, it's $50,000. You go a month over, it's $150,000.
You've lost money now.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a tricky job in that this is a pre-patinaed copper roof. So basically, it's got to look a certain way, and it's a double lock standing seam with 20-ounce copper, and it's curved. So it's curved. It goes up a wall, and goes through the backside, and it's a really long run. And
all one sheet. That's all one sheet.
No, that's how they had it specified.
Right.
But if you understand copper, the coefficiency of expansion is so high, meaning that when it gets hot and cold, if you made that 50-foot sheet, that piece of copper would actually move about 1.5 inches.
Right.
Okay. So what we did was a couple different things. Number one is that we put a seam in the top. So we made something called a bread pan. So a bread pan is where the copper standing seam goes up, and you fold it, and you just fold it so that it folds back right on itself, and then the top side does the same thing, and then we locked it together. So that lock is kind of like an expansion joint.
Okay.
It allows the back side to float and the front side to float. And how we did this is we installed stainless steel cleats that cleat the copper down, but they're sliding cleats. So the cleats will slide up and down and forward and backward. So when that copper roof gets hot, so it's summertime, it's 95 degrees. The sun's beating down on the copper. The copper is 150, 170, 180 degrees. It expands. In the wintertime, it gets cold. It's 20 degrees out. Well, that copper shrinks. So those sliding cleats allow that copper to move and slide with the roof and not oil can. So what happens a lot of times with metal roofs is that they get all crinkly because the metal's trying to move, but it's held down in certain places. So if you use fixed cleats, for instance, they'll hold that metal and it won't allow it to move. Or move enough. It'll
Right.
move, but not enough so that it gets all crinkly. So that's one thing we did. Another thing that we did was where the copper was curving and it went up the
Yeah.
wall, instead of cutting it and soldering it, that poses a problem because that's how they had it specified. So if you have pre-patinaed copper, you're gonna have to wire wheel all of that patina off, use a fairly strong acid to get down to clean copper so that you can solder the two sides or the two pieces together. So once you've done that, now you've got to try and put the patina back, and it'll never go on to the soldered part.
Yeah.
And then when you're getting it onto the shiny bright copper, it'll never match the original patina.
Right.
So we're telling them this is an impossible job because, part of it is that they have to approve the look of it. And I'm like, it's going to look god awful. So we showed them how to do pinch seams, which is what they generally do in Europe.
Yeah.
So, we've got a couple of really good metal masters. Actually, we've got a bunch of them. But, two of them in particular, they were both trained the trainers. So they've taught a lot of people how to do this type of work here in the United States. They were both trained in Europe. And so when you do these pinch seams, basically you're allowing the metal to move without having that solder joint. And also, like I said, if you were to wire wheel all that off and try and patina it again, it'd look awful. So, that's a job where there's not a lot of people that could have done that, and in the time frame.
What time frame did they give you?
It was, I think it was 10 weeks.
10 weeks. That's not a lot of time. I mean, for something of this scale and this size. Alex, by the way, we're going to put a photo when he was talking about all that of the project and how it came out so that we can have some mass out of it. That was amazing, all the details. There's every step of what you have to do. And it's something that, like I do shingle roofing and TPO roofing and things like this. There's a lot of details that go into that. But not near as many, and also just the amount of people. There's tons of people who do that stuff. Not as many people who do the stuff you're talking about. One thing you touched on that I wanted to touch on that I was going to ask you about anyway, but you're talking about your metal masters, right? Mm-hmm. And obviously then under them, people who they train, the craftsmen who do this stuff. This is something that I like to talk about all the time because I see it as such a tough part right now of our industry, and any trades industry is just the labor force and finding that but then B, getting the culture instilled in them to do stuff in a way that you want or I want, and then B, to train them to actually do the physical work. Like just training to know how to do it, and then there's the culture of just being ethical and wanting to do it right every time. So I know that you guys have extensive training programs and you do a lot of promotion to bring in installers and stuff like this. Tell me about some of your success there, because obviously to get a project like that done in 10 weeks, I'm sure you have just a huge team of, good guys up there doing it, right?
Right. So a lot of where our success comes from is our quality control division. Our quality control division does all the training as well as all the inspections. So whenever we do a job, it's inspected by qual.
Yeah.
They go in there and they check the job, and it's actually their job to try and flunk the job, right? So whatever they see that's out, it gets flunked. And the head of quality control isn't under our production. They're two separate divisions.
Right.
So you don't have, the fox in the hen house, so to speak.
Right.
And the other
because the production guy wants to get stuff done. The quality control stuff, the guy's under him. No, that'll be fine. That little problem there. And this guy's like, well, wait, no, and I know what you mean.
Exactly. And the other main thing is the training that's involved. So we've written all of our own courses. How to identify the slate, how to do a clay tile repair, how to do a chimney flashing. So these are all courses in our course room, and so a person studies how to do it, and then we have all these mock roofs in the back of our building. So we've got chimneys, skylights, valleys, pipes. So a person, when they do, say, a chimney course, part of it is doing the practical on the chimney, and they do it on the ground. And then what happens at the end of the chimney course is once he's passed the chimney course, he provisionally can do a chimney. So then he does it out in the field. And then when quality control comes and inspects that he's done 3 of them perfectly, he's then given the pass to completely do chimneys.
Right.
So these mock-ups that we have in the back of the roof are vital because you can kind of see where a person is at. Like if they're having some deficiencies, you can find out, is there some word that they didn't understand, or is there some concept they didn't quite get, or you can really zero in on what the issue is, and then you get them trained. And at that point, here's what's kind of interesting. Like I said, when Qual goes out and checks all the jobs, if you have a guy that flunks, well, he's got to go back out to that job with Qual, and they kind of go over what got done wrong and why, and explain. But if a person continually does things wrong, then sometimes you find out it's not actually a thing that he didn't get trained on. He knows how to do it, but he's not ethical.
Right.
At that point, then he gets to our HR.
It goes
department.
to HR, yeah.
And then we find out what to do with them. A lot of times we'll let them go.
Sure.
Because, the type of work that we do is very intricate. Some of these homes that we work on are churches. You can't have a problem on it. You have a church that's
tens and tens of millions of dollars is property.
It's all scaffolded.
Yeah.
How do you get back up there if you cut a corner?
Right.
You've got properties that sometimes have literally a $20 million piece of art under your roof.
Right.
We've worked on homes they're on private islands. Just getting back to the private island is a task.
Yeah.
So we work on really, really high-end properties, and our teams have to be fabulous.
Yeah.
And so we really go the extra 9 yards to make sure that they're trained to the teeth on how to do that thing. So, and like I said, some of the projects that we've worked on, like I said, the embassies, the churches, residences on private islands. Next month we're starting a job in Montana. Last year we did the first steeple. Now we're doing the second one. It's a clay tile roof. It's 275 feet tall. You can't have a problem. You can't have a tile fall out.
Yeah.
It would kill somebody.
Yeah.
So we do some really, really interesting projects, and that's one of the reasons why we really train our guys to the teeth.
I love that, man. I love that. And what you're talking about, just like that level of like passion and just doing it right, it actually, like what you're talking about inspires me, because I'm just sitting here going, man, how can I make because I have a quality control division too, but how can I make it even better, even though I might not be working on as, crazy of stuff.
Right.
Still, sometimes we're doing commercial properties, and
Sure.
you have to think about any property you're on. Even if it's I'm working on a $300,000 home for someone, that might be their biggest asset, right? The most important thing to them, place to them. It's like, just that care factor. And the one thing is like it sounds like the culture there just is there, and it's a lot of the times a person will come into that, and like if they're a decent person, just culturally they're gonna now want to also do it the way you guys are doing it. Right. It can almost get contagious, but I find it can be challenging to get that going at first, but once you have that ball rolling, it kind of continues on that. So okay, very, very cool. So we were talking a little bit before off camera. So mostly you've worked in the USA. Mm-hmm. Do you guys have goals to branch out? You're telling me your first job in Europe that you guys are going to be doing. Do you have goals? Like, what are your guys' goals as a company moving forward and going farther? Obviously, while retaining the quality that you guys have.
Well, it's actually kind of interesting because, back in the old days, we would always talk about working on like a castle or something, and in Europe where it's on a cliff, and if you drop a tool, it's forever gone because it's 800 feet down.
I like you guys. You guys are like, let me work on the highest liability projects possible. You're the opposite of most contractors. Most contractors are like, no, I don't want to touch that.
Well, that's actually a funny thing, because somebody said you guys are like firefighters, because like in most fires, everybody's running out of the building and the firefighters run in. And that's kind of how we are in roofing, you know. I've had a lot of people call us because they said they've called other roofing companies and they said, hey, here's a funny one. So this was, actually I'm not going to say, I'm just going to say in the New England area. And this person called a local Slate guy. And he said, hey, you do slate roofs, blah, blah, blah. Can you look at this roof? And, you know, he looked at it and never heard anything back. So he kept calling and didn't hear anything. Yeah. Finally got a hold of the guy. And he goes, hey, you know, do you want to do this roof or not? And he's like, well, you know, this is how this guy got our name. He goes, well, this is kind of like a durable job. He goes, what's a durable job?
He said it's a durable job.
He goes, well, there's a company called Durable Slate. Have you ever heard of them? He goes, no. He goes, this is a really complex job. It's like, it's not a simple slate job. You've got like turrets and these copper roofs are really like wildly shaped. And he goes, it's a tough project. He goes, so you can't do it. He goes, not really. And he goes, okay. So he calls another guy in the next state, and he says, hey, you do same thing. You know, guy goes, oh yeah. He goes, oh, big house, no problem. We can do anything. He sends them the prints, and guy's looking at it, and you know, says the exact same thing.
He said it's a durable job. The second guy.
He's like, this is kind of like a durable job. A durable. He goes, yeah. There's a company called Durable Slate. They kind of do these complex projects. He's like, you know, we do slate, but you know, when you're talking about these turrets and like all these different angles and these copper roofs that die into windows and you know, just crazy stuff like you've got on this house. He goes, like, look at these gutters. He's like, you know, they're so decorative and ornate. He's like, it's a really, really complicated job, and it's really like way beyond what we would do. It's like, you know, we'll do a simple slate roof, but he's like, you know, this is really complex. So anyways, this guy was saying, he goes, yeah, I got your name from your two competitors. You know, so it's just like, because I was asking him, like, how'd you get our name up there, you know? And he told me, and he goes, yeah, do you know these guys? Yeah. I'm like, I've heard of them, you know. He goes, well, they said that this is a durable job, so evidently it's your kind of work. And, you know, we do a lot of those. Like, you know, there was one in Missouri we did a few years ago, 3 years ago. This house was 70,000 square feet.
Wow.
Yeah, it took, because of the thickness of the slate, it took 11, and a half. So it was 12 semi-truck loads of slate, because it was half to 3/4 inch slate. It was a 5-color blend. So you had to blend all the slate in. And, you know,
that's tricky, because that's on the installer to do and to make even throughout and make sure that the homeowner is happy. Those are tricky.
Exactly.
I know we do some blends of like clay tile, 3 or 4 colors, so I'm tracking.
Yeah, you pick up one piece of slate. Well, it weighs 10 pounds. you know? Sometimes some of the thicker ones are closer to 3/4. They're probably 15 pounds.
Yeah.
You know, and then everything was lead-coated copper. Yeah. You know, there's 1,000 feet of box gutters that was lead-coated copper. There were all these round sections, you know, and then...
Was this referred by a competitor also, this job?
No, this came in a completely different way. So they were trying to figure out how to do the roof because it was so complex. And so they reached out to several different roofers and asked for a consultant, and they said that my name came up number one. So they're like, so at first they had me write all the specs for it, and then they said, hey, look, we're paying you to write the specs, but we're gonna have to bid this out. I'm like, that's fine. So we bid it out, and there are 3 bids, and we all came within 10% of each other. He said, I'm not gonna say who's high or who's low, but he said, the owner said, basically, if Durable comes within 10 or 15% of everybody else, give it to them. I don't care if they're high, low, whatever, because obviously they know what they're doing. Because there's a lot of really complex pieces to this. It had all these curved copper, lead-coated copper eyebrows. they had these really long copper roofs. So they're standing seam, but they were like 52 feet long. And at first they wanted to put in 52-foot panels. I'm like, you can't do that. I said, you've got, you know, vents and different things coming through. I said, you know, everything's got to move or it's going to tear. So I specified where to put the expansion joints, how to put the standing seam in so that it wouldn't A, tear, and also B, it wouldn't crinkle. You know, when you have those fixed pieces in the roof, every single skylight, every single vent, it doesn't move. It's coming out of the roof. You know, some of those things are cast iron. So, you know, that lead-coated copper that you've got around there, you've got to take into account where all the fixed points are and where your movement's going to be when it gets hot and cold.
Right.
Because in Missouri, again, you're going to be in the 90s down to probably the teens. You're going to have like a 150 or more degree difference in temperatures, and that copper is going to just tear.
Man, I love it. I love how you know, you just all the details and the different this stuff you have to think with is so cool to me, because I'm the same way. You know, on my commercial, on my stuff, just, you know, all the different things you have to think with. So I love it. I was going to just bring up again, just really interesting the competitors referring to you, and I love this because what that means is essentially, one way or another, however you've done it, however the company's done it, you're branded with your roofing industry, with your other competitors in the market, right? And this is something that I do myself, because I don't necessarily see, you know, like, yeah, they're my competitors, but we're all in the same industry together. So like, I have good friends over at like Cam Roofing. I'll shout them out. These guys are awesome on residential roofing. Like, they're insanely good. They don't like commercial though. They just don't do that.
Yeah.
But I'm good friends with the owner, and when they have commercial jobs come in, they say, hey, no, look, but I know a good company in the area, and they refer my name. And hey, if there was a residential project and there was a timeline issue or something I couldn't get to it, I would give it to him. And I have multiple other, you know, quote unquote competitors in the area who I work together with, and maybe we don't refer each other jobs, but maybe we sit down and we talk over coffee about like, hey, you know, how are you solving this kind of issue in your business, or how do you do this better? I've had lunch conversations with other roofing company owners where probably just over coffee, we've saved each other tens of thousands of dollars, or we've improved, you know, our processes in these different ways just based off of a conversation. So I love that, like, ability to be collaborative and to position yourself that way, rather than position like, oh, we're the best and we're coming in and doing, you know, rather than that, just kind of like, hey, we're in this industry together and that kind of thing. So I guess talk to me about that, because obviously to have the business you guys have, be getting these jobs, you must be very well branded in this area. So talk to me about some of how that's come to be over the last, you know, 30, 40 years.
Well, that's really interesting that you bring that out, because the branding is a huge thing. So, like, you know, I see just in your name, Trust Roofing, and I see the billboard. I can already conceptually see what it is, what your brand is. That basically you give a very honest price for honest work, and, you know, you get a good product at the end.
Right.
You know.
And your name the same, the durable Slate. Very
right,
clear. I
love it. So basically, we've branded ourselves as the go-to person for historic roofing. You know, we've received calls. You know, I've got 2 estimates right now that, you know, we just got our California license because we're getting ready to do these jobs in California.
Nice.
You know, one is a historic clay tile roof. Another one is a very, very complex copper copper roofing job.
Yeah.
And we've done things all over the country through the branding. You know, a lot of times when we do a job, we may be the only bidder, or we may be the highest bidder. You know,
right.
There's a roof we did in Potomac, Maryland. She was saying, hey, I got 3 bids. The lowest is here, the middle is here, and you're way over everyone else. And she said, you know, I'm kind of giving you a courtesy call to let you know I'm going with the low bid. And I started laughing. I said, why would you do that to yourself? And she said, what do you mean? I said, okay, so you don't just have a house in Potomac. Potomac is a very nice area in Maryland.
Right.
Fabulous houses. You don't just have a house in Potomac. I said, you have one of the nicest houses in Potomac. I said, I look in your garage, you've got a Tesla, you've got a Range Rover. I said, you don't have just a Tesla, but you have the top of the line. You don't have a Range Rover, but you have the top of the line. I said, look at your landscaping. I said, why I laughed is, why would you do that to yourself to get some low-grade slate roof on your beautiful house when you can have us? I said, it makes no sense to me. And she said, what? And she said, I gotta go. And she literally hung up on me. And half an hour later, she called back and she says, you know what? She's like, everybody I've talked to said that you guys are the best, and you're right. I don't want a second grade or a third grade roof. I want the best. And so she's like, I'm definitely using you. And here's the funniest thing. After we were all done, she called me up and she says, I'm so happy with you guys. She's like, some people, they sell something and maybe it's not quite what you think, but she's like, your company is incredible. Your level of communication, how you kept the job site clean. She's like, just the roof itself, like everything looks perfect. She's like, all the lines, the solder joints, the gutters, the downspouts. She's like, everything is like perfect. Like, this could be, you could take a picture of it and say like, this is, like on a magazine.
Yeah. Like
there's not one thing wrong with it. And the same with your crew. She's like, when your quality control guy came out, I saw him on the roof. He's like checking everything, he's measuring everything. He's looking for every single little thing. And she's like, you just don't get that anymore. And she's like, even though your price is much higher, she's like, you were right. I didn't want the lowest price. I wanted the best value for my money, and you guys gave me the best value for my money. And so that was really interesting. And that's part of the branding, and like I said, there's jobs we've done. I can think of one right now, $1.7 million. We were the only bid.
Right.
Only bid. In fact, somebody tried to get in there after they found out we were bidding it and said, hey, they said, we don't want a number.
I love it. I love it, man. I love that story. I have stories along the same lines. We're doing right now this 15 building condo complex, and they had 12 different bids, and our bid was the highest.
Yeah.
But we were the only bid that could meet the timeline. They needed it like fast, right? The only bid that could meet the timeline. And we were just doing everything to a T. We're doing a full system from that tile manufacturer to a T. It's our crews, our labor. We have workers' comp but we have every single thing in a T. And my manager just said, I was there in the conversation, and I didn't even say anything. But the person's like, we want to go with you guys. We want to sign and start this right now. But the only problem is he shows the Excel grid. We're the highest, right? And everyone was relatively close, but we're just the highest on the close. And my manager looks at me, he's like, well, we're not the other companies. And he just let that hang because we had done all the education. The guy knows, and the guy thought about it. It was the same thing. But one thing I find, and we ended up doing the job. One thing I find interesting, and that you're bringing up here, is that home services is an industry that still, for some reason, even right, because obviously in any industry across the board, there's going to be low end, middle end, high end, right? And different consumers want different things, right?
Exactly.
But home services is a unique industry where consumers who actually want high end, that actually is what they want, for some reason still seem to go that way. Like that person who owns that Tesla, that Range Rover, there is no way they're going to go and buy a Camry, not because it's an evil car, because that's not what they're going to buy, right? Exactly. They're going to buy the Tesla. So it's interesting, or if they go to the grocery store, or whatever the little thing is, or they're going to get their hair done. They're not going to Supercuts. They're going to go get a decent, or they've got a great service. So it's interesting that in home services, there's still a tendency to I don't know why that is, but I've noticed it, or in any service, even if it's handyman, it's cleaning of your home. So I don't know, but it's our job at the end of the day to work on building that value and build a brand. I feel like part of that is just the reputation in home services. So people think, oh, well, maybe there's no such thing as that great service, that great quality control. So I might as well just go to the bottom and deal with it. But I love that. So,
but the branding thing also, going back to what you were saying before about getting out there in the industry and helping people.
Yeah.
That also helps in a different way in that we're also parts of a number of different organizations. So like our CEO, Gary Howells, he's actually chairman of the board of the Slate Roofing Contractors Association. I'm on the board of directors of the National Slate Association. I was president for 5 years. He's on the board of the NRCA, the National Roofing Contractors Association. One of the reasons why I'm down here was we were in St. Pete last week, Thursday and Friday, for the Roofing Alliance, and we're members of the Roofing Alliance. So we're a member of a lot of different things, and we try and stay involved so that we can actually help the industry. You know, the Roofing Alliance raises a lot of money to help things like Ronald McDonald, help things like education. You know, Clemson is now going to have a minor in roofing, and a lot of that has been through the help of the Roofing Alliance.
What's Clemson?
Yeah, Clemson University.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah. So we've done a lot of things to help the roofing industry. Like the NRCA is putting out the pro certification for all these different parts of roofing, and so we just helped put on the pro roofing certification for Slate. You know, Gary, Shane Day, myself, we were all part of the board that helped put it together, and I'm one of 6 assessors to basically assess if somebody can pass the pro cert or not. So we do a lot of things to help the industry, and it's kind of like what you said. You know, you collaborate,
Yep.
and it helps everybody along, and that helps with your branding also.
Yeah.
So it's very big.
Yeah, I freaking love it, man. Well, shoot, we could probably talk forever. Thank you so much for coming on
Yeah.
and taking some time and everything. I mean, obviously, if anybody wants to check you out, you know, whether to work for you, whether to utilize your guys' services, anything like that, the Durable Restoration Company, Durable Slate Company.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Thank you, John. I appreciate it, man. And
all right.
keep
Thanks.
rock and rolling.
All right.
All right.
Sounds great.